absolutely in order because we are moving things over to.
It's 6'7", 320.
Much bigger than that. He made a big block there. Moss buys a little time. Puts it into traffic. Did he pull that down? Kyron Hudson. Oh, my goodness.
Oh my goodness, indeed. Pulling that down with one hand, going Randy Mossing three defenders and pulling it down with one hand is an amazing play indeed. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. As we shine the spotlight onto the game of college football. And with me to discuss all things college football, I've got my good buddy and a wonderful sports mind, Patrick Shepard. Shep, good morning. How are you?
Pretty good. Happy New Year. How's it going, man?
Happy New Year to you and yours. I trust that you had a wonderful holiday, New Year's, all of that, the whole season?
Well, except for a couple sporting results. Yeah, we're good.
We'll get to that, but that's always going to be the case, right? As Mr. Berman over at the Worldwide Leader says, that's why we play the games, right? We can sit here and pontificate, we can predict, we can talk about all the stats and pull in all the numbers, and yet we still have to play the games, and they don't always go according to predictions. So yeah, we'll talk all about that. Let's get going with the college football. I know we've been gone for a couple of weeks, so we've got some catching up to do. So let's take it from the top. Let's talk about. I'm gonna open up the bracket here, and we're gonna talk about. I think the last time we were here before Christmas, we talked about the Oregon result, the first round of things, Bama beating Oklahoma, all that good stuff had taken place. So then yes, let's dive right into the quarters then. I want to start with this game that was surprising to me. Oregon and Texas Tech. What the heck happened to the Texas Tech offense? Was it more about the Oregon defense, or was it the moment getting too big for Texas Tech? And I know there were a lot of. I mean, I felt like Dan Campbell was coaching this thing.
There were a lot of fourth down attempts in that game.
There were, especially in that first half, there were so many turnovers on downs and missed field goals, and the score just continued to hover around the goose eggs, and then barely that 3-0 score. Was it just the moment getting to these teams? What happened there?
Well, I think so. Part of it is both coaches are really analytic driven, and if the numbers say go for it on fourth down, they will. I think that maybe they need to look at game state a little bit more. I know the analytics account for that, but what I mean by game state is if their defense is better than your offense, sometimes you got to kick regardless of game state analytics. Yeah. Right? And this is this is what the coaches get paid for. But I think that Texas Tech's defense was pretty salty. It's just that they really hadn't played an elite talent team this year. No disrespect to BYU. They're really well coached and they play really well, but they're not an elite talent team, and Oregon is. And I think that the portal haul on defense for Texas Tech held up their end of the bargain. It's just their offense was just not good enough to move against a really good Oregon defense. And that's, and as the game went on and it became obvious that Texas Tech wasn't going to be able to come back, I think their defense kind of lost a little bit of their will to live in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what are we doing? We're killing ourselves here.
For what?
They were heroic in the first half, okay? The Texas Tech defense to keep them in the game because the offense kept making mistakes after. It just, I think that Texas Tech had a really good defense this year. They earned their spot in the playoffs, and then Oregon beat them. exercising maybe a little bit of the demons from last year, where Ohio State just crunched them in their rematch.
Yep. I mean, it was. You're absolutely right. The score 23-0 for Oregon is not necessarily indicative of how close the game was, especially in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon only got 309 yards of offense. In the college game today, that's not a lot.
And for Oregon,
215.
Exactly.
And Oregon's a good team. I mean, look, I don't know if Oregon's got the offensive production to beat Indiana or the winner of the Ole Miss Miami game. In fact, I really suspect that if they play Miami, that Dante Moore may get killed. But Oregon's a really good team, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
They got a shot. I mean, they played Indiana close earlier in the year, but that was at Oregon.
I see. I see you shying away from predicting after the way that this playoff bracket has gone, right?
I think that, look, Cignetti is such a good coach. You know,
Yep.
it's hard to bet against him at this point because you bet against him at your peril, right?
Exactly.
But I do look at it and I'm like, man, there's just more NFL dudes on Oregon's side. This would be their second bite at the apple to get Indiana.
So I hear you, but let me counter that. Weren't there more NFL dudes out there for Alabama than there were for Indiana out there? As good as Indiana has been, no disrespect to that roster.
I don't know. So I have some real questions about the Alabama program. I don't think they're nearly as talented as we say they are. And look, one of Cignetti's superpowers is evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in knowing how to use his people. But I don't think there's as many NFL dudes on that damn team as there are in Indiana.
Huh.
At least we'll see. I expect Alabama got dominated along the line of scrimmage. Okay, and usually that's a real good predictor of NFL dudes, right? Is the line of scrimmage stuff. Yeah. And Indiana just whipped them. And Alabama's inability to run the ball is mystifying to me, given their ability to recruit. They're look. I said it when the playoff came out, and I'll say it again. Neither Alabama or Oklahoma deserve to be in over Notre Dame.
Yep. And it showed.
They proved that. Yeah, they proved that. Okay, I mean, Notre Dame is. I actually think Notre Dame could win this bracket. It's one of the things I think is a little frustrating for Notre Dame fans and for the more or less neutral college football fan who's just one of the 12 best teams. Notre Dame is I think they're better than at least 8 teams that make the bracket.
I think that's fair. I mean, they're better than Oklahoma.
Better than Oklahoma. They're better than Alabama. They're better than JMU. They're better than Tulane. That's just 4 out of the way. They're better. Look, I know A&M beat them this year, but they beat them this year in the second game of the season before the defensive coordinator settled into the talent at Notre Dame and like how to use it. I think that they would beat A&M.
Better than A&M.
You
Probably better than Ole Miss.
They're better along the line of scrimmage than Ole Miss.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Ole Miss when we want to get to talk about the Georgia game.
Yeah.
But I think that they would beat Ole Miss. I really do. I think that they would beat Texas Tech because I don't think Texas Tech would be able to score against them.
Yeah.
So that's at least 7. I mean, I think Oregon, Indiana, Georgia, Miami, Ohio State would all be a real close line in that game. But I think Notre Dame could have beat any of them. Yeah. I really do.
Look, I've always, I'll always admit I've got SEC bias, but I was shocked when that happened, and that happened right here on the air. I think we were on the air when the selection was taking place, and I was shocked that Notre Dame got left out.
Yeah, that was pure politics. They don't have a commissioner. They didn't have anybody go for bat for them. And I just don't – I think the other conference commissioners are mad that Notre Dame doesn't have to play a conference championship game.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I don't want to rehash that one because it's gone and by. But, yeah, so that Oregon-Texas Tech game, Oregon was the better team. Indiana obviously wiped the floor with Bama. Of the 2 other quarterfinal games, what do you want to talk about first?
Actually, we've got about 3 minutes, I do want to talk a little bit more about the Alabama game. So I think, that's why I was saying I think there are more NFL dudes, and this is probably going to prove out in the next 2 to 3 years as they get drafted and then perform. Because that's what it comes down to when we say NFL dudes, right?
You're actually going to perform in the NFL.
Yeah. So I really think that's going to be the case. So it's really this game. And by the way, for those of you, if you've been living on Mars, the score was 38-3, Indiana. 38-3. What was the last time you remember Alabama getting thrashed? Even that championship a few years back when they got thrashed, they scored. Right?
Alabama's offensive line, if you can't run and you're playing another really good team and there's like no threat to run, you're just going to get run over.
Yeah. I think that's an indictment on the coaching staff more so than the talent. Because let's be real, a lot of this talent, a lot of the top end senior talent is still Saban talent, right?
Well, not as much
with the portal, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's still got some talent there. It's only been 2 years, but it's not as they don't have the Saban development experience, and it's not quite what I had someone taken over in 2018 as opposed to 2024.
Well, so let's hone in on that. You said they don't have the Saban development experience, so then it absolutely is an indictment on the coaching staff and the development staff, right?
Look, I think DeBoer is a good coach, but I think that there may be certain realities that Alabama's. I think Saban retired for a reason. One, he was old. Okay, but two, he didn't like the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like the having to re-recruit his roster all the time. Remember, the best secondary player in all of college football should be playing for Alabama, but he's playing for Ohio State.
Yep.
Caleb Downs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Bama's pockets are not as deep as Bama fans realize. I think that they are going to no longer be one of the kings of college football. I think that they're going to be one rung below that. And good luck to that fan base dealing with that emotionally.
Exactly. And I think, at the risk of sounding like tooting my own horn, we'll come back to what I said 3 years ago, that the NIL was the great equalizer. And I think
it's a great redistributor. So now you can't just rely on tradition and under the table money.
Yep.
And there's people out there that have some tradition, but more importantly, some passion, and even more importantly, money.
Yeah.
Money.
Yep. And Indiana is absolutely an example of that. We've touched on it before.
Yep.
Their largest benefactor being Mark Cuban, bringing all that money to the program. And, look, I think at this point, and we're about to break, and we're gonna come back and talk about that. Let's start with the Miami-Ohio State game. But with the results of that game at this point, Indiana is yes, they came in as the one seed, but they weren't the overwhelming favorites. I mean, they don't have the pedigree, they don't have the history, they don't have the trust of the fans or the analysts, right? But at this point, with the results of that Ohio State game, Ohio State getting knocked out by Miami, at this point, Indiana is. Would you say they're an overwhelming favorite or just a favorite? Because Oregon's a pretty good team.
I don't think they're the overwhelming favorite. I think that they're a favorite, but I overwhelming would be. Look, Nettie may come out and be like, "Oh, you morons! Why did you not think I was going to do this?" But I don't think they're the overwhelming favorite, and it's because of your concern about talent.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to come back in a couple of minutes, about 3-4 minute break for a few words from our sponsors. But we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the other side of the bracket, those two games, Ohio State, Miami, and an instant classic. As much as, much to my chagrin, I have to admit, that was an instant classic. Ole Miss, Georgia. And we'll talk about all the mistakes that led to the final result.
Well,
but
I got some opinions of the Georgia and Ohio State game and the coaching staffs involved.
Yep. We'll get right into that as soon as we get back. In a few minutes, you're listening to the Sports Spotlight right here on Radio Azad.
This is Radio Azad, where